Hey, thanks for checking out the channel. My name's Moby. The channel is Not So Narrowcast. Please subscribe and like and comment on the videos if you enjoy them. Today I'm going to go over some late round picks in best ball and fantasy football that I like this year, that I have allocations to in various amounts. I've completed 285 best ball drafts between UnderDog and DraftKings already. I'll be doing more. Successful last year in best ball on DraftKings, was profitable in both regular season and playoff. I didn't do much underdog best ball. This year I am, and I have been a successful daily fantasy DFS player with multiple big wins in football, golf, and other sports. So for the purposes of this, I'm looking at what we call late round will be players that have an average draft position or ADP of the 18th round or later, combined on UnderDog and DraftKings ADPs. So there's some guys who've just narrowly missed this, or you will see fall below there. Some of these guys may go above there, but they're ones that you might want to consider. The quarterbacks, there's not a huge amount of names that I consider pretty viable down here. You have several rookies: Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. Now, on DraftKings, it's 20 rounds, and you almost always or generally want to have 3 quarterbacks. On Underdog, it's only 18 rounds, so we could go with either 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Although the 3 quarterback trend has been growing. But because about 2/3 of my draft volume in terms of dollar amount is on DraftKings, and my exposures here I'm showing you are based on dollar amount, then Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck are the highest, about 14%, about 12%. Also have some Russell Wilson, a little under 7%. There is a possibility he keeps the job the entire year if the Giants do well, and that way you're getting a third normal starting quarterback for very cheap draft capital. But in a best ball type format, these rookies like Dart and Shuck in particular could have good games in the playoff weeks of 15, 16, 17. Milroe is one that not many people are taking, hardly at all. But he is on Seattle. He is an explosive runner, an athlete, I believe with a pretty big arm. So maybe you could call him like an Anthony Richardson light. Of course, Anthony Richard himself is rather light, and I don't own a lot of him, but the reason why people do is because he could have a running game and throw a couple long bombs and put up a 30-point fantasy game in the playoffs. Now, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are not on this list because they're going above this range currently. But I think there's a good likelihood that Daniel Jones keeps that job the whole year. So I have a little bit of Milroe late rounds. Also a little bit of Shedeur Sanders and even less of Gabriel and Flacco. I do think there's a pretty good likelihood that both Shedeur and Gabriel will get a look this year, in particular Shedeur. And so if you're looking for those third late quarterbacks that might come in, those are ones. Shuck I like. He's coming in right away, and he was a very high prospect coming out of high school. He's had a long, varied college career. He's rather old, but you do get a little bit of a vibe of a Bo Nix type who isn't necessarily as good a runner. Dart is considered a pretty good runner. And he has weapons. They both have weapons on their teams. So you can see where I've added them a lot as my third quarterbacks. I don't really want a veteran. In general, I don't really want to reach up for the other quarterbacks because they go so much higher. Unless I have a particular weak quarterback room or I'm looking to do some more stacks, then I'll reach up for maybe an Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that. An underdog, when you're talking about the 2 quarterbacks, then I am going to want my second quarterback to be quite a bit higher. There's a lot more names on the running back list and even more names on the wide receiver list. So running backs, now again, there's other names that aren't on here that were on here, but they're currently going above an 18th round ADP, like Jarquez Hunter on the Rams. But currently my biggest exposure down here is Taj Brooks on the Bengals. He's a rookie, presumed to be the backup to Chase Brown. Now, Chase Brown's not a large guy, and any version of his backup could be valuable. The issue is Zach Moss. Now, if it turns out Zach Moss is healthy and on the roster, you're going to want to grab Zach Moss, because the Bengals are the type of, with training camp just starting, there's a lot of uncertainty on a lot of these situations. I'm putting this out right as they're starting to report or getting ready to report for training camp. So these are almost giving you a jump on the gun. Once training camp starts, some of these ADPs are going to fluctuate wildly. But we're speculating on some late round rookies, because they're the ones who could potentially give you the league-winning upside, particularly in best ball. You want to have some rookies on your teams. But the Bengals are the kind of franchise that if Moss is healthy, he could just be the second running back all season. But there is a possibility he's so injured that he's just cut or put on medical for the whole year. Blake Corum's another fairly large position. Again, Jarquez Hunter is more popular right now, but Blake Corum is going to be a second-year back, drafted pretty high, who's had a lot of potential coming out of college. So we don't know yet that he could be the primary, backup and who gets some action this year for the Rams. Rashard Smith on KC, a rookie that I believe is pretty explosive. So with KC's running back situation and their offense, people are always looking for potential pieces of that. Keaton Mitchell is an interesting one who on the Ravens, who apparently is really healthy and whatnot, who was a very had a lot of juice, promising runner who had a bad injury. It's a little bit similar to the J.K. Dobbins situation, happened to him on the same team, the Ravens, and then last season J.K. Dobbins came back and was healthy and had a great, especially first half of the season for the Chargers, and was a great best ball and fantasy pick because he was going really, really late until sort of a lot closer to the season started. Justice Hill is he would not be a direct backup for Derrick Henry. Keaton Mitchell possibly could be, but there's uncertainty here. And again, you're looking at rookies, backups, guys who have roles when you're talking about running backs this late. Ollie Gordon, Miami. And some of these guys are going widely undrafted, particularly on UnderDog, but also on DraftKings. Ollie Gordon was a later round draft pick, but remember also this was a year of rookie, considered a really strong rookie running back class. So guys that were going late might have been much higher, 2 or 3 rounds even higher in other years. Ollie Gordon, to me, Wright, the other backup Miami running back, Jalen Wright, that everybody's taking higher. He was really bad last year if you watched him play. Ollie Gordon could come in right away and be getting goal line work and some additional work. Always at risk of Etienne getting hurt because he's not the largest guy, or them wanting to manage his workload. The New Orleans situation, we have Kendre Miller and Devin Neal as to who is likely going to be the backup to Alvin Kamara. Devin Neal's a rookie, but he was drafted very late, and some of these I sort of looked over them before the draft, but some of these guys I'm also sort of looking at evaluations from various sites. He didn't sound that promising to me, and you have to remember Kendre Miller is there, who was a pretty high draft pick, who hadn't done well his first couple years in the league. He had injuries, and the last coaching staff hated him. But the new coaching staff came in and said everybody's getting a fresh slate. If he does show something, there's a role there. The same thing with Kamara, like where they're going to want another back, and there's also the possibility of Kamara getting banged up, which he has tended to a little bit, and he's getting older. Now, if it turns out in training camp that Devin Neal is the one that's getting all the buzz, and I'm going to want to add to him. But right now, I've gotten more Kendre Miller. Mostert on Vegas, likely the backup obviously for Genti, kind of a touchdown vulture. I'm not huge on him, but I'd rather take young running backs late. But some people think he might have a bigger role in terms of poaching right off the bat. And also, if they do want to manage Genti's workload, Jordan James on the 49ers, that's a rookie I'm not super high on, just because if McCaffrey's healthy and Garendo, and just from looking at his profile, I'm not super high on him, but a lot of people do like his situation, so I have a little bit of him. I believe he's a smaller, explosive back. Kyle Monungai on the Bears, another guy that He's getting some buzz now, and he's rising a bit. I've seen him go in the 18th, even 17th, I think 16th round. He probably will make the team. Whether he gets a role or not, it remains to be seen. People like this kind of idea because DeAndre Swift's really not that great. Rashawn, who knows if the coaches like him or what he can do. And there's nobody really that's known behind them. So people think somebody could emerge, and it's expected to be a more explosive offense. Sean Tucker on Tampa Bay, he was very effective when he had a chance last year. Now, he's the third running back there. But he's the kind of guy that if he does get to play, could have a big game, and you could visualize him having one big game at the end of the year in best ball to help you. Or if one of them goes down, or if, like, let's say Rachaad White is traded, and Sean Tucker's the direct backup to Bucky Irving. Trevor Etienne, another rookie. I don't really think he's going to likely have a big role with them, but he was drafted, and he's from the Etienne clan, and he's kind of explosive. But they have Chuba ahead of him, but also Rico Dowdle. Woody Marks is a guy I like that I probably should draft more of. Not the greatest prospect coming in, but really known as a pass catching back. And he seems like he could carve out a role fairly quickly as that kind of scat back, third back, pass catching back. So maybe more for a PPR league, because after Mixon, we have Chubb, who we don't know if he has anything left. He could very well. We'll find that out most likely over the next month or so. And then you have Dameon Pierce, who's kind of worthless. Some other guys who I actually haven't drafted yet, who I would consider drafting, are Isaiah Davis on the Jets. He looked good last year. The coaches like him. There's that flux situation with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen above him. Something to consider. Eli Mitchell on the Chiefs. I haven't really heard much buzz on him at all, but that situation's in flux, and if Kareem Hunt's super washed or whatnot. Ty Johnson on the Bills looked good at times last year to me. Again, where these are guys who are almost like considered the third running back, but are they going to have a bigger role? If there is an injury, will they be the guy? Just something to look at, especially as training camp goes along. A.J. Dillon on the Eagles. Everybody likes Will Shipley, including me, but A.J. Dillon possibly could come in as the main backup. Samaje Perine on the Bengals. Again, some of these guys may not even make the rosters, but he could end up doing some pass-catching role for the Bengals this season if he's on the team and healthy. Phil Maffa on Dallas, not super promising rookie from what I gather, but their running back situation is so horrible that I have seen him go super late in drafts. Wide receivers, quite a few of them. Of course, you're going to be wanting to get late round receivers. On DraftKings, you usually have a 3-6-8-3, so 3 quarterbacks, 6 running backs, 8 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends. It varies on UnderDog, but usually 5 or 6 running backs, and then so wide receivers 6, 7, 8, even 9. So there's quite a few more guys down here. I've actually got 2 pages of them, so I'll go over kind of quick. And some of these guys go above the 18th round or above the 19th, 20th round pretty often, but this is their average draft position average between the sites currently. Wicks on the and these are how much I've owned of all of them. And again, some of them though I would like to raise up, and some of them I don't want any more of them. And it may change quite a bit, but just to give you some ideas and whatnot. Wicks on the Packers, A.D. Mitchell on the Colts. Some of the top sort of analytical fantasy guys do like him this year. Jalen Naylor on the Vikings is a guy that I personally like as a player, and he's done well when he's had the chance. Now, Addison is likely going to be suspended a bit. The issue is Felton, the rookie, who I either haven't drafted or don't have hardly any of, because there had sort of been indications that he wasn't going to be the third wide receiver, but that's something to keep an eye on, to maybe have a little bit of Felton as well. But, and a lot of these guys are good for stacking. So when you have Love and you maybe want if you don't have a piece or you want a second piece, same thing with Daniel Jones and Richardson, same thing with McCarty, same thing here with Darnold. All of these should be primarily would be, stacking pieces, or week 17 correlation type pieces. Seattle, the third wide receiver, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I do like him. They have another one that I mentioned on the next page. Is it Arian Smith? or is he on the Jets? Oh, it's Holden. It's Holden. He's a rookie. So one of those two is going to be most likely the third wide receiver on that team, and I think more likely of a deep threat with Kupp and JSN being the primary receivers. So, and these guys are not going drafted in a lot of drafts. Tyler Lockett, he has been rising up the boards, but because people look at it and go, well, he's the most well-known Titans receiver behind Ridley. So it's a veteran. Not sure how much he has left. Got some of him. Trey Tucker I like, although have been taking less and less of him as I've gotten more bullish on Beck and even Thornton, the other rookie. So I've been taking less of him. I thought my confidence in him having a good role is decreased somewhat. The Raiders are going to be a better passing offense, and Tucker was decent when he had chances last year. The Redskins situation, we have three receivers here, and they're largely none of them are getting drafted. So you're looking at McLaurin, who may be holding out, Debo, who may be not quite healthy and or washed, and then who do you have? And you have Ertz, who's old. Then you have Robinson and Eckler, Eckler's rather old. So there is opportunity for pass catchers in Washington. Now you have Jalen Lane, a rookie. You have Luke McCaffrey, a second-year guy. And you have Noah Brown, a vet. Noah Brown should be the starter and have the inside track, but he's been hurt a lot, and we don't really know exactly. He got carted off a month or two ago, and the only report was that it wasn't serious, so we don't really know. So I was really hesitant in taking him, but if he is healthy, he would be the one I would be jumping on because he will climb the draft boards. But from looking into the profiles and whatnot, and with Luke McCaffrey not doing really much of anything last year, Jalen Lane was the guy that sounded like a really good opportunity to me up there. And nobody's really talking about him at all. Now, I'm not saying go out, and get these percentages, but just somebody to keep an eye on. Tutu Atwell has been going a lot. He goes higher as well. I mean, he's a pretty well-known player. Maybe the third wide receiver out there is can hit long plays. Wicks is a guy with a lot of potential who's dropped balls. He's burned a lot of fantasy people. A.D. Mitchell, third or fourth wide receiver for the Colts, a second-year guy with some talent. Along the lines with what I was talking about Tennessee, you have Elik Oyomenor. Is it Oyomenor? Also Restrepo, also DK. So there's four of them. And he's a promising rookie. A lot of people thought he would go higher in the draft. So he's one to keep an eye on. And again, wide receivers may come on late, the rookies later in the year. The running backs, if somebody goes down, they can become gold right away. But like I said, there's four of them. I've actually drafted all of them. Restrepo is a smaller wide receiver, but he has a good connection with Ward, the quarterback. And DK is another guy who's a decent prospect. Ray McLeod, he's a good one to stack when there's no other Atlanta pieces available. He did decent last year when he had a chance to play. Should be the third wide receiver for the Falcons, and I do expect Penix to put up some numbers this year. Brandon Cooks on New Orleans, a lot of people seem to be forgetting about him, kind of like they were forgetting about Tyler Lockett. We're assuming these guys have something left. He could or should be the third wide receiver on the Saints. Has been a vet who's consistently put up points throughout his fantasy career and sort of been overlooked. Then you have Elijah Moore on Buffalo and also Curtis Samuel. There are other guys there as well. Elijah Moore is the newest acquisition, so you kind of think he may be the one that gets a little play if you want pieces to play Buffalo. The problem with Buffalo, obviously, is Josh Allen spreads it around, particularly in an individual game. Meanwhile, Lamar sometimes he spreads it around, but one guy will have a big game, and that's better for best ball. If one guy gets 20 1 week, but then doesn't score for 3 weeks, that's better than, three guys getting 5 each week because they won't likely hit your best ball lineup. But so I've taken some Elijah Moore, a guy with potential over the years, hasn't really lived up to it thus far in the NFL. Curtis Samuel, I liked him last year, but he was banged up and didn't do much. Then you have the third wide receiver position basically in Miami. You have Tyreek Hill, who I feel like is always on the verge of somehow missing games for various reasons, flaking out or whatnot. But and then you have Waddle. They don't have a very good tight end. They have Waller, but they're probably going to bring somebody else in, possibly Noah Fant. They have HN. So there's room there. And the two guys we're looking at primarily are Malik Washington and Westbrook-Ikhine. And Westbrook's been on the Titans for several years and has disappointed people, but he has put up touchdowns. Malik is, I believe, a second-year guy. I tend to like Westbrook-Ikhine if he's healthy. Some people like Malik Washington better. Lambert Smith on the Chargers, a rookie wide receiver. I have a bit of him. With Mike Williams retiring, there's more opportunity for pass catching guys in, I was going to say San Diego, but with the Chargers. Now, Mike Williams was a guy that I bought I got a little of who is gone. He retired. This is some of the risk you take when you draft early, but you also can get guys that skyrocket later, like Dylan Sampson. I had about 10% of him that I was drafting in like the 18th, 19th round, and now he's going like, the 15th or higher round with what's going on with the Cleveland running back situation. But Mike Williams, one of the projection sites that did more granular, like season-long, not fantasy, but actually what guys would do, they had Mike Williams getting like 700 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I started taking a bit of him late and said they might be using him for the jump balls, like as they have with the Chargers in the past. But he retired. Troy Franklin on Denver, also Vele. Not really on my radar, but legendary upside in some of the sites like him to catch some balls. Denver might be another team where guys spike from week to week, or it gets spread around. Very unpredictable target share and carry share, in my opinion, from Sean Payton. Arian Smith is a very intriguing guy that a draftee to the Jets. I believe he's a long ball merchant, which they don't really have. If you have Garrett Wilson, then you have like Reynolds and Lazard. Another guy. If Fields is given to throwing or given the reins or wants to throw long balls, some there. Jalen Coker's a guy that gets drafted almost all the time. I haven't really taken a lot of him. A lot of people sort of like him, but that wide receiver room is getting more and more deep, and didn't really put up fantasy numbers or a spike last year from what I saw. Jermaine Burton on the Bengals and Yoshivas. Yoshivas is going higher. I had a lot of Yoshivas last year, and he disappointed. He played a decent amount, but Burrow did not look to him. He looked at Gesicki when the opportunities were there. So I like him, but I'm a little more bearish on him. Jermaine Burton's a total dart throw. He was a fairly high draft pick of theirs. He was very athletic. Had a really bad rookie year. They didn't like him, but if he does, there are some indications he may have matured and gotten, his shit together a little bit, or his play. But we'll see with training camp. But if he is there and he's there, it becomes their other explosive threat, then you're talking about a lot of potential with Chase and Higgins being explosive. Some other wide receivers. There's a lot of them you can look at down there. Roman Wilson, similar to what's his name on the Bengals I just talked about. He was another draft pick that got in the doghouse really quick, but does have athletic ability and may come on. And they do have a lack of they have openings for wide receivers on the Steelers. Jalen Tolbert and Kevontae Turpin. I'm surprised Tolbert doesn't go higher. It isn't drafted more often. I mean, he should be the third wide receiver on Dallas. Again, if I have any of my information wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments, and I apologize for that. And again, things may change with training camp. He's put up numbers in the past, when he's had a chance. Kevontae Turpin on Dallas is another guy. He's a guy they have talked about using as a running back because they like his athletic ability so much. He hasn't gotten a ton of play, but the Dallas running back situation is so horrible that I could see, and I have drafted him just a little bit. Isaac Tesla on the Lions. He was a fairly high draft pick for them, but a lot of people consider it a reach. And they obviously have a very deep room of offensive weapons, so he may get a few gadget plays during the year, but I really wouldn't count on him. Now, the San Francisco wide receiver situation is interesting and in flux because Pearsall just went on the pup for a hamstring. Jennings is a bit discontented. Ayuk is hurt and will take a while to come back. And there's really not much else. So Jacob Cowing and Watkins, I actually get confused on which one is the rookie and which one's been there a year. think Watkins is the rookie. But I think Cowing, I liked better from when I was looking into it. But they could get some play. There's also above them, Demarcus Robinson. So I have him on one of these upcoming lists of guys I haven't drafted that you should consider drafting. Oh, there he is, Demarcus Robinson. He may just come in above both of them and get some play. But then if you're looking for more for guys who haven't shown their potential yet or could pop in a late, with those late season games too, sometimes they're meaningless even that early, or both teams are just having a bit of a surprise shootout. Torrey Horton on Seattle, I mentioned with MVS, a rookie wide receiver who is explosive. Noah Brown, I mentioned with the Washington receivers. If he's healthy, he should be getting picked up like on a lot of teams. Deontay Johnson on Cleveland, a talented guy who's had serious problems getting along. If he keeps his head together on the Browns, he could get a couple touchdowns this year, type of thing. Devontae Walker on the Ravens is like a Roman Wilson type, a draft pick that they completely buried that some people thought could do something last year. But if he turns it around, these second-year guys, third-year guys sometimes on talented teams could get some play. Jalen Royals on the Chiefs, an intriguing rookie that has been getting drafted quite a bit. I have a little of him. You may want to look into him as time goes along. Jalen Hyatt I would not draft. I think I drafted him very early on when I thought the situation there was more unstable. He can be an okay player, but I wouldn't draft him. McCaffrey, as I mentioned, with Jalen Lane and Noah Brown, one of those three is going to be a very good pick, in my opinion. Johnny Wilson on the Eagles, basically undrafted. Some of these guys are drafted. I've just taken him once or twice, I think. He's another one like Roman Wilson, who young wide receiver. They don't really have many wide receivers, and he's a tall guy who can do jump balls and looked like he might have some athletic prowess. So Savion Williams is another rookie wide receiver on the Packers. Now, I think that wide receiver room is too deep for him to have any play, but some of the analytical expert guys do have him as a possibility way down the list. Amari Cooper's a free agent. Could sign if he has some juice left. Could be a good pickup. I haven't really been picking much of them. I mentioned Restrepo and the multitude of guys on Tennessee. One of those will be, or two of them will be good. Nick Nash is an undrafted free agent that don't really recommend taking him. I think I took him once or twice. But if he does sign with the Falcons and get some play, Kamir DK, who I mentioned on the Titans, is one of theirs. Mac Hollins is on the Pats. Pretty good receiver, pretty good football player, and that situation's in flux. He's never getting drafted, so it's the kind of thing where you want to see. I mean, maybe he's getting cut. I don't know. Some of these rookies possibly could get cut, but somebody to look into. Jordan Whittington on the Rams, a guy I liked last year, showed some flashes, especially in preseason, but he hasn't really been on the love list. Like, they don't seem to love him that much, but somebody I'm keeping in the back of my head, especially if somebody gets injured. Like Ty Felton, I mentioned of Minnesota with Naylor. I actually do want to draft him. I do want to draft Demarcus Robinson. Then you have the Jets with Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard. But, a lot of these guys are pretty low ceiling, like very low ceiling. They might have a decent floor. But, in best ball, you're tending to look for higher ceiling guys. Josh Reynolds would be one of those two I would like better. Curtis Samuel, I mentioned with Moore. Vele, I mentioned with Franklin as Broncos pieces. Butte and Kendrick Bourne, I'm not sure if they're both going to make the team or not, but as Patriots pieces with Mac Hollins, and the Patriots pass game may be greatly improved, but they have brought in rookies as well, including this Efton Chisholm, who got a little bit of buzz. I don't know if he's even going to make the team. Some of these guys may make it as special teams players. Then you have old Juju on the Chiefs. Somehow finds a way to get some play from them every year. Probably pretty washed, but they do seem to like him there. Gabe Davis is a free agent, and there's rumors about him. I don't know if he's even healthy. But if he does pop up with somebody, he can get some play in the right situation. Greg Dortch, Arizona, again, I'm not 100% sure of his situation, but he's been a decent fantasy player in the past for small roles. Let's look at tight ends lastly, or next. There's some nice tight ends. Now, again, some teams only draft 2 tight ends, including on DraftKings. But I always pretty much draft a third tight end late because I'm like, what's out there? Even if I have an elite and another good one, They can score for you, and if an injury happens or whatnot, on Underdog's a different story, because if I have an elite one there, I'm fairly hesitant to add a third one. Although the 3-5-7-3 build is becoming more and more popular since some kind of sims showed it to be good, and I think it performed well last year, which is 3 quarterback, 5 running back, 7 wide receivers, 3 tight ends. So I do tend to add a third one there more often than I used to. Also because I do DraftKings drafts more often in the past, so that sometimes is in my mind. Grab that third tight end, grab that third quarterback. But nonetheless, so I wouldn't necessarily. I would be careful about having these guys as your second tight end. Is my point. These guys are more for third tight end. But you have Jatavian Sanders and Theo Johnson, 2 guys who got play as rookies. I believe they both got hurt. But they both should be starters, and they're young and athletic and have promise, so those are pretty nice picks. A guy I've thrown in a little more than I probably would like is Harold Fannin, who's a rookie. He is a guy who I believe will make plays in the NFL. It's just the situation there, and Njoku's already there. Do I see him possibly having some good games? Yeah, but I don't really want that much of him. Juwan Johnson, as much of him as I have. Juwan Johnson, but like legendary upside in some of these places, really like Fannin as a late round dart throw. Juwan Johnson should be the starting one for the Saints, and he goes undrafted even. Fannin rarely gets drafted. These 2 guys almost always get drafted. Juwan Johnson goes out undrafted sometimes, even on DraftKings, and seems to me a pretty good pickup. If Tyler Shuck likes him as his safety blanket. Of course, some people, I guess, are thinking Taysom Hill might be healthy. I have not taken him once. I don't think he'll be healthy. If he is, this changes things. You're going to want some get some Taysom Hill. Freiermuth on Pittsburgh. I had not really gotten much of him before the Jonnu news broke, and so since then I haven't really felt the need to take him. Why take a second running back tight end when you can get a starting tight end at those prices? Arroyo on Seattle. We just had the news come out recently that Fant was cut. Okay, so that sets up Arroyo, but also A.J. Barner. Arroyo is a very talented rookie. A.J. Barner, if you watched the Lions game last year, he tore it up. And I hadn't taken him once. I thought about it several times, but just with there being 3 guys there with Fant, I was like, I did not take any Fant either. I had taken some Arroyo. He has a lot of potential. I would snap up some A.J. Barner and Arroyo both, and see how it plays out. They may both be part of it. What's going on there? Kmet on the Bears. I drafted him a little more earlier on when Loveland's injury status wasn't known. I do think he's a guy that's proven that he can put up points, fantasy points, but how much of a role he's going to have, it's hard to say, really. He could have a bigger role than people think, but I wouldn't be that confident in adding to your best ball team as your third tight end. Gadsden on the Chargers is one a lot of people like. I'm not as bullish on him getting fantasy points this year. I think Fannin would be more likely. Probably Arroyo, definitely at this point, seems like he would be. They had seemed to like him, but you got to remember they brought in Conklin and they have Disley. Disley caught touchdowns last year. I had a decent amount of him as my last tight end. He actually caught touchdowns. Conklin was the primary, tight end for the Jets catching balls. So there's really, there's very little, I think, opportunity for him, but he could get a little play. Terrence Ferguson on the Rams is another guy that people have been drafting that I've been fading. They already have Higbee there, and they haven't really thrown that much to their running back, their tight ends in the last few years. I thought, what's his name was going to do well there last year, and he did nothing. I forgot, is it Parkinson? So I'm a little hesitant on him getting any significant playing time this year. This doesn't mean for their career, for dynasty or whatnot. I'm more talking about this year. Gunnar Helm is a deep sleeper. I have added a couple times sort of for fun. I think he's a guy who would have gone a lot higher in the draft if he hadn't. I believe he was injured when he did his combines and whatnot. The problem for him is that Okonkwo's ahead of him on the Titans. But I would, he's the kind of guy that might have as much likelihood as these two. I mean, if we start hearing more about him, these guys coming out of the training camp, they may rock it up a bit. Higbee's still there in the Rams and will probably be their primary tight end and pass catcher. Tiny bit of him. Sanad is a guy I do think has a lot of potential. He has Zach Ertz in front of him. And Zach Ertz did not get hurt last year. Zach Ertz used to be extremely injury prone. If Ertz does go down, Sanat could be a very good pick. It's just hard for me to take a guy like these guys. I think will start. These three in particular, Arroyo May, Fannon's a guy I think will get passes thrown his way for sure. But again, I don't want that. Sanat's a guy that has potential. Mike Mayer on the Raiders, there was rumor of him being possibly traded. I took a little bit of him. He's a talented guy too. He could catch some passes, and of course the Bowers contingent, but I wouldn't rely on him. Some other guys I haven't taken, Noah Gray, these are mostly vets. Noah Gray on the Chiefs, Dawson Knox on the Bills, Will Dissly, Luke Musgrave on the Packers. Now remember last year, Musgrave was thought to have the inside track on the job ahead of Kraft, but Musgrave got hurt and Kraft ran away with it. But he is on a good team, and then Noah Fant. So I ran through a lot of guys there, tried to do it not to be too long. Let's win some money this season or win your trophy, whatever you're competing for. Thanks for checking out my video. My channel's the Not So Narrow Cast. I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe to it on YouTube and like the videos and comment whether you agree or disagree with me or want to add a name I didn't put on there. All right, thanks for checking out. Have a good one. Have a good fantasy football season.